r/AskReddit by Redmond ETS. Those who disowned their parents, what was the final straw? My sibling died, and in the days leading up to his funeral my mother was so exquisitely awful that I stopped fantasizing about harming her and began fantasizing about my life in prison after her murder. At one point I was standing behind her at the top of a flight of stairs as she monologued about how everything was my fault. I could have pushed her, but instead promised myself that after I made it through the funeral I'd never speak with her again. This year marks a decade since I last spoke with her, and my only regret is not cutting her out of my life earlier. There truly wasn't one. It just was so much, for so long that I just stopped. My mom was too proud ever to call me because in her head, she deserved to be called. My father chose to cut me out of his life when my wife asked him not to wear shoes in the house. Long and short, I was essayed by uncles as a child, multiple occasions. Tons of rage issues because of it. Grew up in a single parent household with mom not in the picture. Fast forward, faced my demons to an extent, mended relationship with mom. Opened up to brothers and sisters and finally mom about the essay. Suddenly I'm lying. I've always been a liar since I was a child. My brothers would never do a thing to hurt you. Straight up alienated by my family tree because said essay. Ended the last convo with, you didn't protect me as a child, you won't protect or support me as an adult, and you won't protect my children either. What use are you to me or any of us? Mother was a career crackhead. I traveled 15 hours by Greyhound bus back to Illinois to help her finish up some roofing jobs still incomplete. She intentionally got in a fight with me at the bus station after the jobs were done, didn't get me a ticket back, and ghosted me on $2,500. I had maybe $30 to my name at the time. Then she shut off my cell phone immediately after driving away. Had to walk about 5 miles to a friend's house. He and a few of my other friends drove me back down to Alabama that night. Never spoke to her again. It was a long process, but it really ended when my mom tried to sue my wife and me for grandparents' rights. Anything after that would have only helped her to build a case to legally kidnap our son. It was a long time coming. But the straw that broke the camel's back was berating me for not coming to a family function when I told my father that I had something that was completely unskippable at work. I had been abused by my father for years, his way of getting back at me for my mother leaving him I suppose. I just lost it at him and told him what I thought of him. I haven't spoken to him or his family that all took his side every single time in 15 years. It was relatively small when I stand back and look, but it was clear that our relationship was always going to be me and everyone else upending my life so he could do nothing at all. The final straw was a request for me to attend an appointment that would mean a 1.5 hour bus ride each direction, missing classes, missing work, plus make my own arrangements to stay somewhere overnight. I couldn't stay in my parents' home unless I slept in a sleeping bag on the floor somewhere, and I didn't own a sleeping bag. Also my father could play happy family in public, again. I didn't get on the bus. I went to class. I had a bad day at work. Then I slept in my own bed. I didn't mean it to be forever, but I realized while my work day was tanking, I would still rather be doing that than pretending to be a happy family. Every day since has been better than it would be if he were in my life. He made good days miserable and bad days hell. My mother likes to make me cry. I think it's a control thing, but she always denies it even happens. After going out of her way to make me break down for 3 birthdays in a row, I asked my father if, just for 1 year, I could avoid speaking to her for the day. Bear in mind, I live in a different country, so it would just be a case of me not picking up the phone when she called. My father went apeshit. Called me ungrateful, pathetic, a disappointment, etc. Then said his biggest regret was that my suicide attempt failed. All because I wanted a birthday where I didn't cry. I just hung up without saying a word. Blocked their numbers and email addresses, deleted all social media. It's been years, and I'm so grateful he said all those horrible things, because I finally realized how better my life is without them. My mother gave me a long speech about the morality of being a lesbian a couple of days before I, a woman, got married to my wife. She's pretty high up on her horse for a drug addict who stole from me. After telling them I was getting divorced, they told me 1. My ex would always be their son and that they loved him more than me. To be fair, they did try to backtrack and say they loved us both. 2. That no one else would ever love me and I'd realize I was ruining my life when I died alone. 3. They only loved me because the Bible said they had to. 4. That they were writing me out of their will and leaving it to my ex because this was proof I was mentally unstable and once I'd come to my senses and gone back to him it would be mine anyway. They were emotionally abusive my whole life but I kept going back and making excuses for them. Not helped because my ex was abusive too. It's easy to believe you deserve to be treated badly when it's all people are telling you. Eventually I realized that I deserved to be happy and I just couldn't do that while continuing a relationship with them. They're never going to change. I think they honestly believe they're saying these things out of love and have no awareness of how they've hurt me. Parents got divorced between 12-14. During that period, my dad became an evangelical Christian. All of a sudden, everything revolved around God and Jesus. This continued until he moved to the United States when I was 18, because America is doing the Lord's work. He completely ghosted his 2 teenage children and started a new Christian family. He came to visit one time. He never met his 3 grandchildren and died in 2022. It had been 17 years since I had seen him. I did not go to the funeral because, to me, he had been dead a long time. I had a kid and realized I didn't want them having any influence in her life. Their influence on mine was bad enough. I wouldn't say disowned, but certainly ghosted. My mother died when I was in college. It was horrible seeing her in hospital, skin yellow from jaundice, slowly succumbing to alcoholism. My father was a hardcore drinker too. He could hold his liquor better, but every night my parents would get wasted, and it was never a fun thing to be around. Being a kid growing up, you could only communicate with them in the morning when they were sober. In the evenings, I would stay in my room. As an adult with a full realization of how my father treated me growing up, not really close, not available as a parent, occasional beatings with a belt, no acknowledgement of his faults or lack of initiative in helping my mother, I decided to ghost him. For the last 20 years of his life, I had no communication with him. He died a sad, pathetic man who had no self-awareness of the pain inflicted. I have no regrets at all. She stole my student loan money. I worked so hard to get into college and have a full scholarship, and she stole my room and board and book money. It made the first year of college damn near impossible, which kinda set the tone for the next 3. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more? Have a nice evening.